to the Mike Miller Show.
Will I be a good man? Will I be true?
Happy America Monday. Take two. Happy Monday, America. Jessica. Man, you know, I was reading something as the music went away quicker than I anticipated. A lot of crap going down, young lady.
That is an affirmative.
And almost an understatement, isn't it?
Very much so.
All right, so let's rewind the tape, shall we? I spent an extra long weekend at the Southern Command, as it were, down at the condo on Lake Monroe, for those who in Indiana, largest reservoir in the state. But anyway, so we headed down there Thursday night, and so on the way down, and we're actually in separate cars. We being my wife and I. She was working the business at one of her locations closer to the condo than to the house. So when that happens, particularly she tries to do it towards the end of the week, then I'll go down and stay there and meet her, and then we'll do a long weekend. So anyway, I'm driving down Thursday night, and I'm just goofing around with the radio. I'm kind of like in the hills between Indianapolis and Bloomington, and I pick up the live feed from Fox Radio and Sky News about the Nice terrorist attack.
Yep.
So I'm listening to that all the way down there, and we'll have some commentary on that a little bit. And then driving back Sunday, well, actually before I left Sunday, my wife left to take a detour through Brown County to pick something up that she wished we had bought the day before. And for those of you from Indiana, you know Brown County, Nashville specifically. But anyway, so then, the Baton Rouge thing comes on. So I'm getting wonderful news on the way down and on the way back.
Yeah, that's how it feels like.
So I was a busy camper as it relates to Independent Journal Review. Anyone new to the show, contributing editor, kind of I like that because I just kind of get to do my own thing and be a big shot, if you will. I'm being facetious. But so yeah, a target-rich environment in terms of stuff to write and talk about. And speaking of talking, at the bottom of the hour, we will have the Politistics Matthew Burke join us, who was supposed to join us Friday. And we did not do a show from the Southern Command Friday, did we, Jessica?
No, we did not. We had some technical difficulties.
Yeah, that's putting it nicely. Okay, so I do the show from my opulent studio in the house normally, and then I was going to do it from my equally opulent. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Somebody was. No, they're not. Okay, so yeah, my equally opulent studio at the Southern Command, and as luck would have it, about an hour or so before, I realized that I don't have my trusty headset with me. I had left it at the house. And of course, it was too late to procure one, so we were not able to do the show. So we're looking forward to having Matthew on today. Okay, enough about that. You know what? Before we get to that stuff, there was breaking news this morning. I mean, when I say that, sometimes it's going to be something stupid, but this is actually true. Black angry activist. Oh, I'm sorry. Baltimore's state attorney, Marilyn Mosby, went 0 for 4 this morning. Did you see that?
I did see that.
Yeah, another officer acquitted. He's the highest-ranking officer, actually, charged in Freddie Gray's death. Not guilty on all counts. And, of course, this is, as I say, this makes her 0 for 4. Now, the first one was a mistrial, I believe, and will probably be retried. But, I mean, already now, this is the highest-ranking officer. The last one was the driver who faced the worst set of charges. And so all these guys are off. So congrats to Marilyn Mosby. and her agenda. But anyway, yeah, that happened today. I was pretty happy about that. All right, let's talk about Nice a little bit. What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was interesting that not even after all the bodies had been counted, they had already been saying, other people had been reporting here in America that there was no clear motive. And meanwhile, the French president was saying these terrorist attacks need to stop.
Yeah, did you see? And I tell you who caught a lot. Well, there's multiple liberal media outlets that caught a lot of flack, but MSNBC was tweeting about the horrific quote truck crash in Nice.
Yeah, I saw that. And it was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So that was that. I was surprised. Obama, in his statement, called it a terrorist attack. And in contrast to these terrorists, who, of course, he didn't use the R word or the I word, those words being radical Islam. But so that happened. And, and it kind of struck me a little bit that there was no proof. I mean, from you mentioned French officials. I mentioned Obama's comments. There was not, and there still is not. In fact, I read it this morning. There is no credible connection of him to terrorist organizations. Now, again, this is always kind of a gray area, murky area, as you will. Was he influenced as opposed to, proactively radicalized or whatever? I mean, there are some suggestions that may be so, but then on the other hand, the guy, again, allegedly drank, smoked, ate pork, and did not leave a wholesome life, as would your typical radical Islamists. So I don't know. But again, just horrific,
It's terrible, and it just really is very sad. And there were people that were like, right as it was happening, were saying, where is everybody else saying ban trucks now? Which I understood that sentiment, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy.
Ban trucks with large capacity fuel tanks.
Exactly.
Ominously painted, maybe scary looking bumper guards and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
And and again, I understand this is the equivalent of name dropping, but I have been to the south of France. And the only reason I say that is because, this is kind of a serene area down there. I mean, you expect stuff to happen if it's going to happen in Paris, right?
Yeah.
In London, in New York City. But this would almost be the equivalence of going into West Palm Beach, right? Or Beverly Hills or something, and doing something like this. And so, but I think this is kind of, I've talked for years that. Excuse me, as opposed to the next time again flying a plane into what used to be called the Sears Tower in Chicago next time or whatever, going into multiple shopping malls at the same time and or multiple clubs like what we saw in Orlando or what have you, and striking at the heart of America. This is kind of what I suspect this is all about. But anyway, that happened, and Obama once again although he did refer to them as terrorists, he did make sure that he must be on contract with Islam or whatever. He had to work in the religion of peace thing. And I don't want to play any clips from him because I just can't hardly stand to listen to this guy's voice anymore. But here's a quote, "And in contrast to these terrorists who only know how to kill and destroy, we're going to win this fight by building, Jessica, by never giving up on diplomacy." Let's stop right there. Okay. I think I just said that he said maybe the key weapon in his arsenal against these people is diplomacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, by never giving up on diplomacy to end the Syrian civil war, by working with partners around the world, including Muslim communities, to push back against hateful ideologies that twist and distort Islam. And he has to say it every time, a religion that teaches peace and justice and compassion, end quote. Give me a you-know-what break. And again, as the disclaimer I use every time, I'm not suggesting that all Muslims around the world like to cut off heads and fly planes into buildings and kill homosexuals, but really a religion that teaches peace and justice and compassion. Check into some of the Wahhabi madrasas funded by our pals in Saudi Arabia around the world, including in this country, and see if they teach peace and justice and compassion. Or do they teach that Jews are the descendants of apes and pigs? How are women treated in Saudi Arabia? So we don't have time to go on that whole rant, which those of you who have listened to me and read me in the past know I want to do. This guy cannot help himself every time to work in this crap about this religion that teaches peace and justice and compassion. And I'm sorry. It's just nonsense. Other than that, Jessica, I don't have an opinion on it.
Yeah, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, put me down as a maybe, as an Obama fan. All right. All right. So then, speaking of him, can you believe it? 6 months from now, this guy is gone.
Yeah, I can't.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's
getting-
crazy.
Yeah. My wife is a Hill fan.
Oh, yeah.
I hate it when people call her that. I have other names for her. But, I told her the other night, I said, that like the only saving grace, or the only, the upside to Hillary winning the election, which is going to happen, in my humble opinion, will be that he will be gone. The community organizer will be gone. And whatever remnants are left, she hangs on to Loretta Lynch as promised, or whatever have you. I mean, at least he will be gone. So he, this flips to, as I mentioned when I was driving back Sunday, the attack in Baton Rouge, which killed 3 officers, wounded 3 others. One is still apparently either in a coma, at least in critical condition. And this was, again, an assassination, like in Dallas. I mean, unprovoked. I mean, just white cops, although one of them was a black cop, which is very interesting, because apparently black lives matter, but black cop lives don't matter. So there are subsets of black lives that don't matter. At least I've not heard that they do from the usual suspects who get their racist panties in a wad every time there's a police action, a justified police action, I might add, against a perpetrator of color, shall we say. But anyway, so Obama making comments again about, let me step out of this for a second. Do you think, Jessica, and I already know the answer, and I think I know how you're going to answer it. I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you think, like, every time this happens, even for a nanosecond, or at least sometimes when this happens, particularly when it's now happening with regularity, do you think for a nanosecond that he just might think, you know what, maybe I just, some of the stuff I've said, or at least maybe I should tone it down a little bit, or like, not that I'm responsible, but probably I'm not helping anything. Think that even flashes through his mind?
Actually, yesterday during the speech, like at one point, I thought he was gonna just say "knock it off," like it felt that way. But then obviously that did not happen. But
yeah, but no.
Yeah.
But I don't think it enters his mind. I think it should. It would mine. It would. I know that it would. I would think. I would begin to.
I don't think that doesn't not enter his mind. I just think that there's a rhetoric there and an ideology that is going to continue.
Well, he's totally convinced. I mean, he might as he channels D. Ray McKesson a little bit. I mean, not maybe not completely. D. Ray being, I don't know, is he the founder of Black Lives Matter? I'm not sure, but he's one of the key people in it. But sure, he's got a bit of that in him. Eric, My People Holder, had a bit of that in him. Al Sharpton's got a whole bunch of it in him. I mean, but anyway, yeah, you thought he's going to say knock it off because he feels almost like he has to, even if he doesn't totally believe it. Although I think when he's talking like he did yesterday, you don't ever see the fire and the passion behind it like you do when he's talking about, like after Sandy Hook, right?
Yeah.
Or when he's talking about same-sex marriage, or when he's talking about rich people need to pay their fair share. You never see the passion behind it. But what struck me is just absolutely hilarity. And again, I don't want to hear him, but let me just do the quote. Quote, "We don't need inflammatory rhetoric. We don't need careless accusations thrown around to score political points or to advance an agenda. We need to temper our words and our hearts, all of us." I mean, that's like right off the onion. That's all this guy's done since he's been president.
Yeah, that was the part where I thought he was gonna end with like knock it off, people. You know.
I mean, for him to say, we don't need careless accusations thrown around to score political points or advance an agenda. Hell, before, and I hate to say it, before Trayvon Martin's body was cold, right? If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. The comments he made about Ferguson, Missouri. Every time there's a shooting, we don't need to throw around accusations to score political points or advance an agenda. He advances the gun grabber agenda every opportunity he gets, as does Hillary, as do all of the Democrats. But this guy could not be any more hypocritical if he tried.
Yeah, especially with that statement. I thought the same thing.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, he can't be gone fast enough. So
I don't know. I don't know how much better it's going to be after.
Well, again, I don't know. You know what? But it's almost like she's not Obama. I mean, I loathe the ground that Hillary Clinton walks on and have for years. She's a liar, all of the above. But gosh, I still think she doesn't hate this country as much as he does. We don't have time to get all into that. You all know what I think about that. I really do think that there's that far element on the left that loathes America, what it stands for, begrudges the fact that we are who we are. But again, we'll do that again some other time. I want to talk about, because the half hour is over. The convention, Jessica, in Cleveland, finally here today.
Yes. Starting today.
So I don't know if the Black Panthers, as announced, have arrived with their weapons, or some of the pro-Trump groups have arrived with their weapons. There have been several groups that have announced they were going to arrive. Ohio being an open carry state. Kasich, the governor, there has been a request, probably multiple requests, to him to suspend open carry, at least in Cleveland during the convention. He said he cannot do that, which he can't. I'm not suggesting that we're going to have the proverbial gunfight at the OK Corral, or fire in the streets or whatever, but I don't see anything positive coming from all these people being armed. But what I want to talk a little bit about, we have a couple clips that we want to hear, at least that I want to hear. It's my show, I guess, so I can hear them. But so lots of big shots staying away, Jessica. The Bushes aren't going. Kasich's not going. And it's in his home state. So what do you think about that? Okay, you guys lost. This guy won. Even if you're opposed to him, would you not rather have him as your president than Hillary? Do you think these people should come and at least pretend, as the Democrats often pretend, but to show unity?
Well, they would have done it for any of the other people. So, yeah, I think they are being a bit hypocritical by not
I think
showing
they are
up.
too. And look, Matthew Burke's going to push back at me, and that's fine. They all signed that pledge, and that pledge was asked to be signed ostensibly to catch Donald Trump, right?
Oh, yeah.
Whether Trump would sign it and back them were he not the nominee. They all signed it, and they're not even showing up.
Oh, yeah. And now they're also, not even going along with it either. I just read an article the other day with that Jeb Bush is gonna now vote independent. I'm like, really? Yeah. Like, I think he was supporting the Libertarian candidate now, which I'm like, okay, guys, good job.
Yeah, good job. What did we say last show? Of course, Bernie finally endorsed Hillary. He has a key speech. It's not the keynote, but he has a headliner speech at the convention. They've done the arm in arm thing, the kissy face thing. Democrats do that. Democrats ultimately circle the wagons, where, as we said last week, Republicans do the circular firing squad with the weapons pointed towards the center. So Romney's not going. Last two nominees, Romney's not going. McCain's not going, and a dozen senators or more are not showing up. We have a short clip from Mitt Romney, from Newt Gingrich, talking about this a little bit yesterday, his feelings about Jeb and company not attending the convention. Let's hear what Newt has to say.
The Bushes are behaving, I think, childishly. Childishly? Childishly. I mean, Jeb lost. You know, get over it. I mean, the fact is, this Republican Party's been awfully good to the Bushes. And it's showing remarkable little gratitude. Mitt Romney. Romney refused to endorse Reagan, and then I was there in '94 in the debate with Teddy Kennedy. He refused to say that he was for Reagan Bush in the 80s. He refused to support the contract with America. He comes along and says, "Oh, I've now changed. I'm now a real Republican." Well, that lasted as long as we were supporting him. Mitt Romney was really happy.
Childish. I like it. You know, I was trying to explain Newt. You know, obviously she knows who he is and so forth to my wife last night. You know, that Newt is this guy that he's kind of like I don't know how to like he's like a Trump with a governor. You know what a governor is like on a car? It'll only let it go so fast. Newt has boundaries. Maybe I should say it that way. Newt has filters and boundaries that Trump doesn't. But Newt is liable to say almost anything at any point. But you know what? I agree with him here. I mean, I don't know if they're childish, but it's like, we didn't win. We're going to, as you and I said, we're going to renege on our promise, we being Jeb Bush and company, and they just don't show up. I do think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I would call it childish because that's exactly how they're acting. You know, they're just, you know, every time I see, especially Jeb Bush now, you know, he just sounds like a whiny baby. Like, he really does.
Yeah. And you know what? And again, Matthew, if you're listening, man, I love you to death, and your wife, and all of y'all who are, and I was a huge Cruz supporter, endorsed him and the whole bit. But I just, you know, we're at the point now where it is what it is. And I don't know. So to that point, Paul Manafort, this is Trump's campaign chairman. He was on Morning Joe this morning. And as I mentioned, John Kasich, governor of Ohio, former candidate, obviously is not showing up. Let's hear what Manafort said about that this morning.
And there's not a lot of major Republicans coming to town.
That actually wrong.
Am I?
Wrong.
Well, go ahead. Tell me why.
They're except for one or two, as you call them, Republicans not coming to town. The city's going to have most
Where's
of the Republican
John Kasich?
leadership.
Is he coming and speaking?
Except for one or two.
He's the governor of the state.
Kasich is the only, and you know what? He's making a big mistake. He's making a big mistake. He's looking at something that's not going to happen. He's hurting his state. He's embarrassing his state, frankly.
Now, I don't know about embarrassing the state, and I'm not Kasich, but it just looks like sour grapes, doesn't it?
It really does.
I mean, come on. It's your state.
It doesn't
You're the
look
number one Republican in your state, and you're not going to go to the convention.
It really doesn't look good for them. It really just doesn't. I don't see how they think it helps their careers at all, like in the future.
No, and to that exact point, Ted Cruz is going, and Ted Cruz is going to speak. And there was no more bitter battle in the entire season of the Republican primaries than between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. And Ted Cruz is playing it smart. Ted Cruz has not officially endorsed or even unofficially endorsed the Trumpster, and he has made some, he's called him a pathological liar and almost worse, but he's showing up and he's going to speak. Now, that doesn't just mean he's being benevolent. In fact, doesn't mean that at all, because he's already thinking about 4 years down the road, but he's still going, right? And Kasich could have welcomed the delegates to Ohio. He would not have had to endorse Trump, but I think he's making a mistake.
Yeah, I do. I think that is the what you got to call it. It is a mistake for them to do that.
Yeah. One more clip, and I will have to put my fingers in my ears and hum, so you have to you'll have to mute me. But our maverick rogue pal, Sarah Palin, this goes back a month or so, obviously an avid Trump supporter. I'm going to see if I can handle this and listen to it. But this whole notion of hashtag never Trump, and I'm going to talk with Burke about that when he comes on, but I just thought this was kind of clever. And again, I wish someone else had said it. But she has a different nickname for the never Trump crowd. Let's listen to what Maverick Sarah had to say a while back.
Threat. You know who's threatened? Those GOPers who insist that they'll never vote for their party's choice this time. They call themselves, that gang, they call themselves the never hashtag, the whatever. Okay. Oh, well, I just call them Republicans Against Trump, or RAT for short.
Sarah, she kind of lives on planet Sarah, doesn't she?
It's like her face in that. Like, I'm just waiting for the Tina Fey, like, reprisal.
I think Tina Fey does her better than she does herself anymore.
At this point, yeah, but it's just her face was perfect for that.
You can't see her now and not think of Tina Fey doing her.
It's true. It's very true.
Let me see here. I got one or two things I want to hit. Okay, I'll let you pick. We got to go quickly. Regardless of who they support for president, here these two articles I wrote in the last couple of days. Regardless of who they support for president, here's one thing 6 of 10 Americans definitely agree on. Or Huffington Post runs open letter to Hillary. What it asks her to do might make Democrats nervous. Which one of those you want to hear?
Let's hit the Hillary one.
All right. As I said, Huffington Post runs open letter. We may go 30 seconds over. I don't think so. So kind of play with me there. But Huffington Post runs open letter to Hillary. What it asks her to do might make Democrats nervous. This was written by Democrats. This is an op-ed in HuffPo. When did I put this up? A couple of days ago. Doing very well, and I love it because we're a conservative site, and this is about the Democrats. But this was written by Alexandra Scott, a Democrat who describes herself as an educator, writer, and transgender activist. All right. So I'm guessing, and I know, Jessica, she's a bit to the left of Hillary. So she wrote an op-ed. Here it is. And she nails this, by the way, as if this is out of the Republican playbook. Excuse me. Dear Secretary Clinton, please step down. Withdraw from the race. Throw your considerable expertise and energy behind Elizabeth Warren. You go down in history as a selfless humanitarian who cared more about the future of humanity than she did about her own aspirations. The situation is dire. Even the slightest possibility of a Trump presidency, you are tied in the polls today, by the way, in parentheses, is too much for our fragile democracy and even our more fragile world. Our problems are legion and getting worse. You have too much baggage. And while you are, again, it's a Democrat, and while you are appreciated by many for everything you have accomplished, we need a candidate who has the opportunity to bring people together. We need to end polarization, and sadly, that is not you. If the narrative over the next 3 months is your emails, Benghazi, Bill's Picadillos, the finances of the Clinton Foundation, and general Republican antipathy towards you, then we will be unable to talk about the solutions for climate change, greed, violence, worldwide social unrest, and the need for national and international collaboration. Problem solving. I have family and friends in the hinterlands. Whether it is justified or not, they do not trust you and are prepared to sit out the election. These are people who voted for Obama twice. Despite my pleas to them about the potentially negative and profound repercussions of Trump's pathological narcissism for all of us, they are adamant about not supporting you. I love this last paragraph, Jessica. I am begging you, model selflessness and wisdom. The world and the United States are at an ecological and political tipping point. Please, for the love of God, do the right thing and get out. Respectfully and with great admiration, Alexandra Scott.
Okay.
That was pretty awesome, wasn't it?
That
For the
was
love of
interesting.
God, do the right thing and get the hell out of here. Respectfully and with great admiration. So,
I like that. That was a good ending.
well, that was pretty funny. When I saw that, that right there was the gist of the post, and she wrote it all for me, so that was pretty good. Gosh, we got to get out of here. Matthew Burke is a good pal of mine. We differ a little bit on this convention, I think, but he's on top of it. So we're going to talk to him when we get back. This is Mike Miller and Jessica Chang. We'll be back after the break with Politistics and Matthew Burke. Don't go away.
Will I be a good man? Will I be true? True to myself, be true to you. The devil is...
Doug, I never thought I could go back to school, but when it's this easy, it fits.
I'm right there with you, Jackie, taking classes, watching lectures in the living room on the iPad. It's not hard.
I can be a mom, make dinner, get my classwork done, and not miss a moment with my family. It's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Hey, it's Jackie Velasquez, and if Doug and I can do this, you can do this too. Higher education with Liberty University Online.
Find out more about completing your college degree at the world's largest Christian university, Liberty University. Get all the details right now. Grab your cell and dial pound 250. When prompted, say the keyword Liberty University.
Training champions for Christ since 1971, Liberty University Online. Find out more about learning online. Dial pound 250, then say the keyword Liberty University.
Liberty University Online with hundreds of degree programs to choose from. Call now, pound 250. Say the keyword Liberty University.
That's pound 250. Say keyword Liberty University.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Welcome back to the second half hour of the Mike Miller Show. As promised, I am joined by a good pal. He and his wife are both good pals of mine, but the Politistics, Matthew Burke. Mr. Burke, how are you today, my friend?
You know, for a fellow my age, I am doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. I was splaining to the folks at the top of the hour that you were supposed to be on Friday from the opulent studio at the Southern Command, as Rush calls his place. And it occurred to me about an hour or so before the show that I had left my my headset at the opulent studio at the Northern Command. So that didn't happen. But you were gracious enough to come on today. So we got stuff to talk about, brother. And I said, I don't know if you were listening to any of the show before you came on. You and I may disagree a little bit on some of what we're about to talk about today. But in anticipation of you coming on, I fired up Politistick. And for those of you listening, Politistick, as in POLITISTICK.com. You can go there now if you want. But your head story here, report, hashtag Never Trump candidate emerges to challenge Trump in GOP convention floor fight. That seems to me to be a good place to start. Tell me about that.
It was reported yesterday that retired Senator Tom Coburn, he's not throwing his hat in the ring. He's not campaigning for it. In fact, he said he wouldn't campaign for it. But he said if he is drafted by the delegates at the Republican National Committee, he would accept a nomination. And that's a new thing because the 800-pound, gorilla not in the room for the Never Trump movement, if you want to call it that, has been no candidate has been willing to come forward. Not
Ted
Cruz or Mitch Romney or, that David French. guy from
Well,
National Review.
this goes back to William Crystal and Romney and that whole thing.
Yeah, it goes back months and months and months and months, and this movement has sort of been moving and growing, but they've never had a candidate. So they kind of sort of at least have someone, and he would be, I think, someone that would be palatable from, constitutional conservative Tea Party nut jobs like myself, which I'm proudly of, and even the Rhino establishment really respects Tom Coburn. Yes, he's not Ted Cruz, but
he's a well-respected dude all the way around. I agree.
Yeah, and I think he respects the Constitution. I think he respects separation of powers. I know he doesn't have narcissistic personality disorder. So I'd be okay with that. We all have to plug our nose a little bit. We plugged our nose in McCain, Romney. It's just a matter of degree, but I would certainly take Tom Coburn over Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump for that
You
matter.
wouldn't have to. What you're saying is you wouldn't have to hold your nose as tightly with Coburn as you would with Trump.
No, with Trump, I would literally have to stick my head in the toilet and
now let me ask you.
Flush it multiple times.
Let me ask you this, and be devil's advocate, because while everything you just said, let's assume it's true, and I think by and large it is. In other words, the guy is kind of respected across the board. He's not. He's certainly not anathema to a large swath of the party, as is Donald Trump. So
Right.
everything you said, let's run with that because I believe it all to be true. The other issue, I'm channeling Rush today. I don't know why. I don't, I've several things. But anyway, the other issue is, do you really think at this late point, and you know what I think about Trump. Your wife knows what I think about Trump because we're all on the same page. We could play three-handed, whatever against Trump and do fairly well.
Sure.
But do you really think? I mean, the convention is here. Man, I don't think it's going to happen. But B, let's pretend it did. What do you think that would do to the apple cart, as it were, the Republican apple cart?
I think it would save the Republican apple cart from complete and utter destruction, which it's going to have if Trump is the nominee. If you're asking me if it's a long shot, it's absolutely a long shot. It's, bigger than a Hail Mary, I would say.
Way bigger. Just throw
But
Hail
it's not
Mary.
impossible either. Right now believe me, this election year, nothing is impossible. Okay, but it's definitely a long shot. No disagreement here. Right now on the delegate floor, the Iowa delegates just walked out.
Now, are you out there?
No.
Okay.
I'm watching it on C-SPAN.
Gotcha. I was going to ask you before we came on if you were not.
So there's stuff going on. There's 11 states that signed a majority of the delegates to a petition to have a floor vote on the Rules Committee.
And they have the requisite number of votes to make that happen, right?
Yes, you only need 7. Well, the chairman just walked off, just went into hiding. And so there's utter mayhem and anarchy with various chants going on from, we want Trump to shame, shame, shame. And it's just utter mayhem.
Yeah,
so it's going to be really interesting to find out what's happened. I don't have any loyalty to the Republican Party anyway. I think it's worthless. I think it stands for nothing and they fight for nothing.
I agree with you to an extent, sure.
I don't care if it goes away. That's not my beef. My beef is with the country, and
talk more about that. Talk more about that.
We have the worst 2 presidential nominees got to be in the history of this country. I mean, you have Hillary Clinton, the most corrupt presidential nominee in U.S. history by far. I don't even think anyone's remotely close to her. And then you have Donald Trump, who I am serious about this, more than likely has a serious untreated case of narcissistic personality disorder. And if history has taught us anything, you don't give those people more power.
Hey, by the way, and just a quick aside, and then jump back into this train of thought. Did you see where the ghostwriter of The Art of the Deal came out? And did you see anything about that?
I
He said,
did.
yeah, he said, he's like, he feels bad. He says, like, I feel partially responsible for making this guy, you know, more legitimate or more famous or whatever. And he called him a sociopath.
Yes, he said if he had to retitle The Art of the Deal, which, you know, Trump has always claimed up to this point he wrote.
Right.
He didn't write it. He had a ghostwriter, you know, imagine that. He would rename it The Sociopath. And I would say that's accurate. It just amazes me to hear the same people talk about Barack Obama's narcissism. And Donald Trump is so far out in front of him in that category. It's not even close. And they're absolutely fine with it.
All right, so let's get back to what you were saying, and and I share this belief with you. Your dissatisfaction, your disappointment, your disgust, or worse, generally with the American people. These two candidates did not nominate themselves. Millions and millions of people voted for both of them, and here we are. What the hell has gone on in this country to get us to this point that these two people can become the nominees of the major parties?
Well, I think this is a reflection of society. I mean, when you look at Donald Trump and you look at Hillary Clinton, we're looking, from a societal standpoint, we're looking in the mirror. So we have no one to blame but ourselves. But on that point, I will note that millions of Democrats voted for Donald Trump. And they didn't vote for him because they liked him. They voted for him because they knew he would have the least chance to defeat Hillary Clinton, because he represents every negative stereotype that Democrats have. You know, you can make a case racist, bigoted, unhinged, mean-spirited, all of those check marks that, yeah, they made those against Mitt Romney, but they weren't true.
You know,
with Trump, you can make a case they're all true.
Yeah. And I know your wife is pays attention to stuff on my timeline from time to time, and I think you maybe do too. But you if so, I have said multiple times, you know, people ask me, you know, why do you hate Trump? Because, you know, I catch a lot of crap from these people.
Yeah, we all do. It's
yeah,
terrible.
I used to do the Trump-a-Loompa thing, and the, you know,
I still do
the Trumpineers and the and so forth. But why do you hate Trump? I said, I don't hate Trump. I don't necessarily even dislike Trump. I think he's a phony and a fraud, and he has no base of principle, ideology, or, you know, all the above. But I don't dislike Donald Trump. My disgust is with the people that put Donald Trump in this position, and that's what you're saying.
Bingo. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. I mean, we had the opportunity, we thought everyone on our side had wanted, right?
Yeah.
Was the next Ronald Reagan, or the closest to it we could get. And it's inarguable that Ted Cruz was as close as we've had to that in our lifetime. Someone who could win.
I think you're right.
And they vote for this New York liberal con man. It makes me sick.
Well,
and they should be hanging their head in shame and disgust that they were duped by this fraud.
There is a I shouldn't say this because nobody ever gets mad at me for keeping my mouth shut, by the way. I mean, I you never have to wonder what I'm thinking, because I have more filters than I did when I was younger, but not as many as I should at this point in life. But I call it kind of the bowling shirt mentality. You know, Rush, talks a lot about low information voters. And for those of you playing along at home, low information does not need to mean stupid. It can, but it does not need to mean that. It can mean you can be willfully ignorant, right? You can be uninformed on purpose. But there's this bowling shirt mentality,
That's funny.
Trumpism, that he's going to make America great again. How? He's going to build a wall. How? He's going to make Apple build iPhones and they just have no clue that A, he can't do most of what he says he would do, and B, if he could, particularly as it relates to trade, he would screw things up far worse than they already are. But that, so there we have it. But I still, I want to circle back, but this notion that even if he could be tossed out on his ass, Jim Rome there, I don't know, being different people today, but I just don't know that that would be a good thing. I mean, let's let the Republican Party burn itself to the ground after he does get his ass handed to him in November, and let's rebuild for 2020 is kind of my thought.
I get that, and that's probably the more likely outcome. And just kind of piggybacking on your wonderful analogy there of the bowling shirts, I think it goes beyond just low information.
Yeah.
It is a willful desire to ignore the thinking part of their brain.
Well, that's part of that definition.
It's purposely low information, because when you argue with these people, they can't argue based on facts, logic,
Of course
and
not.
reason.
Of course
It's
not.
all emotional. They're just emotional.
They argue like
infants.
Democrats. They argue like Democrats.
Yeah, they're worse
It's
than
not
Obama's
factually
hope and
based.
changers.
That's right, and it's emotional. No, I said it. I mean, part of the definition, or a sub-definition, if you will, of low information is willful ignorance, willfully low information. They're definitely there. The majority of Trump people are definitely there. I mean, I get that. Now let me throw a ringer in and argue with myself, and let you respond to that. Would you rather have this loose cannon? Let's call him what you called him, sociopath. I don't know. Yeah, well, the other guy, the guy that the ghostwriter of Art of the Deal called him that. Would you rather have Donald Trump in a position, hoping against hope, as P.J. O'Rourke said, that he doesn't find the nuclear button and blow up the world? Okay, but
Always a possibility.
Yeah, given that doesn't happen, would you rather have Donald Trump in a position, as loose of a cannon as he is, to make 2, 3, maybe even 4 nominations to the Supreme Court, granted we don't know who or what they would be, versus Hillary Clinton, and we're pretty damn sure the type of candidate that she would nominate? Which of those two would you rather have making those choices?
Oh my God, I hate these false choices. It's like, who do you want for president? Stalin or Lenin or
I understand
Hitler?
that, but
it's like, can I say none of the above? It's like, I don't trust either of them. I don't think there's any difference. I mean, Trump said he was going to nominate out of these 15 people, and literally within hours, he said maybe not.
He may add more to the list. I understand that. And I'm not saying that I buy into it. I'm just saying that is, for people that do say, okay, I'm going to hold my nose. I really don't want Donald Trump to be president, but I'm going to hold my nose and vote for him because of the Supreme Court thing. That seems to be the one issue that they say, okay, I get that, because we know. I mean, we don't have to guess or be afraid or wonder. We know the types of candidates that Hillary would nominate.
Right. But then also the Republicans have to maintain a majority anyway to get his people appointed, which they probably would. But there's no guarantee that the Republicans are even going to keep a majority in the Senate anyhow.
No.
And so if he brings down he said the other day, I'm sure you heard this, he doesn't even care about majorities.
Oh, I understand.
Well, how is he going to get his Supreme Court justices appointed without a majority of Republicans?
He doesn't know. I mean,
well, there you go.
Let me throw in one more argument for you in terms of a Republican, like even a real Republican, let alone a pretend Republican like Donald Trump. Republicans gave us David Souter, Justice Kennedy, and John Roberts. So there you go. So there you go.
So much for a Republican majority anyway. I mean, it's done. That goes back to, one of our opponents earlier is really, look at his Republican Party. What has it given us? Hasn't given us anything.
No.
We got a $19 trillion debt. We're living in a regulatory state where they, tax, control every move you make. What have they given us? They're not the party of small government. We've got 2 parties, big government party number 1 and big government party number 2. And we just keep trading who's in power, but it's exactly the same result.
No, you're right. You're right on. I mean, the Republican Party has absolutely no one to blame but itself. I mean,
Correct.
John Boehner, Mitch McConnell. I mean, I don't know if you and I talked about this before, but I've talked with many people, going back to the 2014 midterms. I mean, the Democrats got their asses handed to them in the 2014 midterms. It was there on the platter for Boehner and company. Yet by January of 2015, as Boehner continued to fold up like a cheap lawn chair, by January 2015, you'd have thought it was the Republicans that got their asses handed to them. And this is you can say a lot about Donald Trump, but you do have to hand it to this guy. When I say you, I mean third party you got to hand it to this guy in terms of he tapped into, now that might have been happenstance, but he did tap into this supreme anger that people in this party have with the likes of Mitch McConnell and John Boehner and on down the line, didn't he?
Oh, there's no doubt. And the thing is, like September, October, he was probably, I mean, you wouldn't believe this by the way I'm talking right now, but there's a lot of things that have happened that he's done and said since September and October, right?
Yeah.
But he was probably my number 2 back then. It's like, maybe we just need this somebody to go in there and kick ass. But that was before he really revealed his lunatic side. And we all have our bridges that are too far, and he's just way too far from it.
Yeah, he's way in over his head.
But it wasn't always that way. My point is, he could have won over the conservative base. He could have won over Ted Cruz's supporters. He could have easily had this nomination. He could have easily been and should be 10 to 15 points ahead of Hillary Clinton right now. And I think any Republican would be.
I suspect you could be right. I mean,
his narcissism always gets in the way.
Yeah, he can't help himself. He can't get out of his own way. To your point, I mean, it's just kind of pull on that a little bit. I mean, had he had a Paul Manafort as an example instead of a Corey Lewandowski from the beginning, and more importantly, had he listened to him, I'm pretty sure Manafort would have been telling him exactly what you just said. Things might have been different. Well, at least maybe the Never Trump movement on the R side would have been much smaller. I think you're right, man.
Oh, I just think there's no doubt about that. And you and I both know this, and he knows this. He's not even reaching out to conservatives. He's reaching out to the socialists. He wants Bernie's people.
Yeah.
For God's sakes.
That went over well, didn't it?
Yeah. I'm so done with this R. Oh, vote for the person with the magic R. No, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
Not doing it. I'm done.
I just, well, again, I mean, I think one way or the other, and it's going to be the one way being A in my mind, he's going to get his ass handed to him. I suspect that this is just me. I suspect that the popular vote may be closer than a lot of people that think he's going down in flames may believe. But I think in Electoral College, I think he's going to get his ass handed to him handily.
Right.
And it's just, what do we do in 2020? I mean, obviously, Ted is already thinking in that direction. And, who knows, maybe Rubio, I don't know. So, but, then there's that part of me that, and I guess probably every generation says this at one point. But in my mind, Matthew, moving towards 2016, when you looked at particularly immigration, when you look at what's going on in the Middle East, and now, that cancer has spread throughout Europe and is coming here, this to me was, at least in my lifetime, potentially the most important presidential election that I could remember. I don't know if you feel that or not.
Oh, totally. I don't think there's anything even close to this. And with all of those things going on, every single one of them should favor the Republican candidate. It should be a layup. This should be an easy thing after 8 years of Obama.
Yeah. Well, and it should have been
really sad.
And it should have been after 4 years of Obama.
And hey, right? you brought up Ted Cruz. He had an interview today, a long, hour interview with Politico.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he said was they pulled out the stops in the 30 days prior to Indiana. They spent $15 million in campaign advertising. Over that last 30 days, you know how much free media Trump had? $500 million.
Yeah, it's incredible. And
so the media picked Trump. Democrats put Trump over the edge. And now we're faced with the consequences.
And you talk about the long knives coming out in the media. Now that this thing, as of Thursday, okay, when it is absolutely official, it's a done deal. You know, you've seen those stories. They've been sitting on stuff. Some of it is leaked out.
Oh God!
But
totally
they're gonna. This guy will be completely torched by the liberal media over the next 4 months or so.
Yep. And Cruz's his team's analysis that last month, 90% of that coverage about Trump was positive.
Yeah.
And now there's a study the other day, which confirms what you're saying, with, you know, not anecdotal, but like scientific study that showed it's 90% negative about Trump.
Now,
so they were doing just that. They're doing what they always do, which is get the biggest rhino, McCain, Romney, Bob Dole, etc. Anybody but a conservative, someone as close to a Democrat as they most possibly can, in this case, a lifelong New York liberal, and they nominate him.
We were talking at the top of the hour, and I put an article up on IJR to this effect earlier today. But you have Jeb Bush not going, you have W not going, you have Romney and McCain not showing up, you have over a dozen senators. Cruz is going, and Cruz is going to speak. What do you think about that?
I think, okay, if he gets up there and praises Donald Trump, I'm going to be bent. But I'm pretty sure that's not what he's going to do. He's like the lone voice of conservatism that is going to be speaking at that convention. And believe me, you're not going to get any conservatism out of, you know, Donald Trump or his family. And that's such a big stage. I think that's really important. Well, so I don't mind him speaking.
Yeah, I think he's doing
cheerleads for Trump or something. Yeah, I'm going to have a problem with that.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either.
We got about a minute here, but he said, and not specifically when asked about this speech, but after a meeting with Trump in New York recently, that he will talk about the need to get back to the Constitution and what Barack Obama and his ilk have done to it. So I'm sure he will, he's not going to get up there and fall to his knees and endorse Trump. He may be pleasant, but I think he's doing the right thing. I think speaking, and I think guys like Kasich, this is in his home state, not even showing up, and to an extent, Jeb whining and crying, and I think that's a mistake.
It is.
Hey, listen.
But hopefully it's a 76 moment, and people realize, they took Ford and they could have had Reagan.
I think, you know what? I think that at this point, my friend, is probably the most that we can hope for. So tell people, when you and I talk, when I talk with your wife, I mean, time flies. But tell people where to come read you guys, because you guys are awesome. You always have cool stuff up.
Bless your heart. We appreciate it. Politistick.com, just like it sounds, politistick.com. And also, if you're tired of Drudge, we have a aggregator site called thelibertydaily.com that a lot of people appreciate.
And it's just thelibertydaily.com?
Yes, sir.
I will have to check that out.
Yeah.
All right. Say hello to your wife for me.
We'll do it, brother. Thanks so much for the time. Always good to chat with you.
And thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys' passion, and I think we agree on 95% of the stuff, and that's a hell of a lot better than a lot of folks these days. So, all right, Matthew, take care, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, Jessica, a little bit of disagreement there, I think, but no, I mean, he's he's mostly spot on. I mean, these in terms of this just complete, supreme, utter, just hair on fire stuff that Donald Trump, within 3 days from now, going to be the nominee of the Republican Party. Who'd have thunk it?
I thought it after I saw the people running against him.
Did you really?
I did.
I mean, at what point did you realize? You go back. So he announced in June. At what point did you think?
When I saw that Ted Cruz was his main opposition, I didn't think Ted Cruz could beat Trump.
I wonder. I've wondered at what point it actually hit him.
Yeah, that's a
Holy
good.
shit!
That's a good
I shouldn't have
point.
said that, but I'm actually going to win this damn thing. Hey, you guys chew on that. We got to be getting out of here. Fun show. We will be back friendly. God, why are we doing that? I can't do days today. We will be back Wednesday, and maybe with a guest. We don't know. But anyway, thanks for listening. Tell your friends. Mike Miller, Jessica Jane. We'll see you on Wednesday.